Welcome to the 13th grade. My name's Elliot. Today I want to talk to you about potentially, no, probably one of the number one things that can rob you of your financial freedom and ensure you never reach generational wealth, and that is life creep. Let's talk about it. All right, guys, welcome back. This is the 13th grade. I want to talk to you today about something our term called life creep. If you've heard about, if heard this topic or whatever, that's fine. Bear with me. I want to give you sort of my rendition. And again, I'll be honest with you, like this entire course, while it does seem like it's just kind of completely arbitrary, like I'm just putting stuff out there, this is, and all of this comes from pretty much my own personal journey. And so, what I would really like to do is kind of talk to you about my own personal journey as it relates to life creep, and really kind of how I found myself, like, basically at a point where I was just like crazy debt, whatever, completely on the absolute wrong path. I grew up, for those of you who have not seen the full course or didn't watch the beginning of it, I grew up basically from working class family, working class parents, kind of thing. Absolutely no knock on them whatsoever. They gave me an amazing work ethic, great morals, all the things. I would say that they did practically everything that they could possibly to do to ensure that my brother and I had the best foot forward. Um, Encouraged us to obviously get good grades, ensure we got good grades, toured us around to all the things, playing sports, after school curricular activities, again, just all the things. And the result of that is both my brother and I are for the most part, you would say just, sort of upper middle class, whatever, like successful at sort of what we've done, contributing heavily towards them. Again, you are definitely the fruit of, sort of your circle of influence. And a key part of that, obviously, is your parents and your family that are around you. One of the main differences, I would say, to both, the trajectory of both, like my brother's done what I've done. Now he's actually pretty successful. And I just say, without knowing exactly all of his finances, we have maybe a notch or so above, is through the idea of being to understand investing, making money, and all those types of things, and me applying those about a decade or so, which then just completely super snowballed. However, that said, we actually followed completely different paths up until the point where sort of I made that decision or my eyes were opened about as far as like how actually money works. Previous to that, he is both 3 years my older. He was always, for the most part, pretty frugal. Once he started working, he got married to, amazing person very early on, and they kind of followed the Dave Ramsey method. And I don't think they ever really got into any debts. They both had good, stable jobs, like didn't make a whole lot of money in the beginning, but like lived frugal in the beginning. And they just kind of like were always sort of putting the money away in IRAs and stock up portfolios and sort of investing it that traditional, if you went to a certified financial planner, and actually even today, they still use a certified financial planner. And they kind of just keep telling the same thing, like, hey, you're making good income, you're making more income now. If you'd like to put more into the account or whatever, we can put more into an index fund. And you can retire even earlier. You can have a better retirement, whatever. That's kind of went that pathway. Me, I went completely opposite. Growing up from working class family, again, we never really had a whole lot of money. My parents did something very smart, and I'm convinced myself right now it was purposeful. And I believe, if I remember correct, they did tell me this. It was purposeful, so I'm not just making it up. But they basically, through, they opened a couple of businesses. Some of them failed, some of them worked out. At a certain point in our life, they, growing up in Madison, Wisconsin, they kind of gathered us all together and they said, listen, we're moving to Florida. We're done with the snow. We're done with the weather. We need a change. And when that happened, my whole world changed because, moving at like really the fifth grade, I had a completely different set of friends. Like what was in Wisconsin versus the people that were in Florida, completely different. But an interesting thing happened in that they took us from sort of my friends in my neighborhood, which was all sort of just like, I don't say working poor, but working class, like middle class, maybe middle lower class, whatever it is, like it's definitely struggling a little bit, but kind of like making things meet. Um, and they bought kind of like what I say is the smallest house in the nicest community that they could find. And when they did that, again, it completely changed the friends that because, honestly, like who you go to school with matters, but like who you play with after school really mattered. We didn't have these things, these cell phones. We didn't have social media. And so when you rode the bus home, you rode the bus home with certain people. And, after, you got home or whatever, you did your homework, whatever it is, and then you went out and you played. And the people you hung out with was the people in your neighborhood, like the neighbors to your left and right. That's who you hung out with. And when I hung out with people, the neighbors to the left and right, I hung out with people that were like, let's just say, had more money than I did. I remember still to this day, a good friend of mine who lived right across, right, just over the street, kind of on the corner. His brother bought a Mazda 626, black, little gold emblems on it, or whatever. Beautiful, beautiful car. He had a beautiful girlfriend who he got, which I attached to because he was wealthy, because he drove a really nice car, because he had, let's just say, because he had money. He also dated like the hottest girl in school. That hottest girl's sister was someone who I actually wanted to date, which I eventually dated. Think that was pretty nice. But the point is like I was definitely envious coming from like not having any money coming from a family where it's like we did have one pair of shoes and we wore that for a year. We didn't really like buy clothes all the time. And seeing my friends, my new friends, and they were seemingly like bought clothes all the time. They like if we went fishing, they had all the new fishing rod and all the extra gear, and they had gear on top of the gear. And to the point where when we went places, they would be like, "Hey, do you want to use my stuff or whatever?" Like I was definitely the charity case. Let's just put it toting around. But what that did is it gave me an appetite for wanting more because I didn't have, again, no discredit to my parents, but I didn't necessarily have. And so seeing people that did have, as much as what people do probably now on social media, where they're looking at people's social media and they're like, oh, those people have all those kinds of things they want, they have all, whatever. You just kind of become envious, which is obviously not biblical, not good or whatever. But like, again, just becoming like, just, I want those things, whatever, just natural, right? it it drove to me. It drove a spark in me, and what that resulted in is, the brother that I was talking about, who was wealthy, ended up like having a little lawn service that he did, and then I wanted a lawn service because he did it, and so I started mowing lawns at like sixth, seventh grade, earning like $20. Walk up, knock on the neighbor's house, and be like, "Hey, can I mow your lawn for $20 or whatever?" I don't even know why these people allow us to do it, but they did, and so I started kind of making money a little bit. Right at the age of 15, I went and worked at Chick-fil-A as a cashier because it's the only place that you could work is at 15 years old as a cashier. And then I went to McDonald's and I worked in a movie theater and I eventually got into restaurants and so forth. The point is, I had a spark in me to go, well, my parents unfortunately didn't necessarily, even at that time, even though they bought a pretty nice house in one of the nicest neighborhoods, they still like, they just made that work, right? And so if I wanted new clothes, new pair of shoes, when I wanted my first beeper, just age myself when I wanted my first cell phone after that, when I want whatever I wanted, I kind of had to go work and pay for. So very, very early on, I began or I learned, the habit of, you know, don't do the extracurricular thing after school, like at the high school level. Like, don't go play football, even though I was but basically where I am right now, 200 pounds, 6'2", like big people begging me to go be, to go play. I was like, no, I got to go to work because I want to go make money so that I can like go buy the things I wanted, right? And so I just ended up developed this big habit of just needing and needing and needing. I'm not necessarily certain if that's because I didn't have a whole lot and I saw people that had it and that snowballed. But let's just say I got very early on into the earn and consume lifestyle. I definitely did not or receive any sort of direct financial literacy from my parents in the idea of that I should be sort of earning something even at high school level and then both saving it. Very different than for my kids who earn today at the ages of 10, 8, and 4 and are already saving, investing again through my help, but like they're investing, they're putting their money in account, and they're seeing how that works. Like My kids that want to, they see the Cybertruck and they're like, that's so awesome. I'm like, do you want to own a piece of Tesla, the whole company? And like, how do I do that? Well, we make them go do work and then we buy them shares of Tesla with that particular money. So they're receiving that. I didn't get that. And so very early on, I started that particular lifestyle. And I knew, and as I was told by my parents, which is, I think all parents of my parents' age told kids of my current age, if you want to be successful, you need to graduate high school, go to college, get a good job, and you'll be successful. And so what did I do? I graduated high school and applied to college and I went to college. I still remember today the bad financial habits that I had at that particular moment. And this is probably where it really started is, going into like, I deserve a nice house. I deserve a good place. I want that without any sort of need or desire to like sacrifice, or I didn't have enough money for it or whatever. When I went to University of Florida for the very first time, the first place that I stayed wasn't in a dorm. It wasn't a place with roommates. It wasn't a place with, a single little tiny apartment. Oh, no, no, no. And through the help of my parents and their encouragement, was like, no, I'm going to go get a two-bedroom apartment. And because not only do I need a place to stay, but I need a whole separate spot in my house just to have an office and a computer room so that I can do all my homework. Like, such a ridiculous, ridiculous statement. So I went to University of Florida. My parents were like, "Oh, don't worry about it. We can help you out." Needless to say, I didn't get a single penny from my parents. I think through the entire time. Well, later I did. We'll talk about it in a second. But I didn't get any money from there, and I was stuck early on in college with this big apartment rent, which is going to probably not sound like a lot to you guys, but it was $640. I still remember it today because it was so daunting for me to make that payment. Okay. And so, um, going to college, obviously, college was expensive, books, the apartment, all of that. I already started to take out student loans. Even though I had some scholarship, I still took out student loans because the government at that time came to you and they said, "Hey, we'll give you," I forget the dollar amounts, but like we'll give you like 3 grand a semester, and you don't have to pay it until you graduate. And then when you do graduate, it's going to be like a 1% interest rate. And actually, my student loans were actually about a 1.5%, 2% interest rate for the time until I paid them off. Long story short, in college, went there, racked up a bunch of student loan debt, finally made it, finally graduated. But I did one thing that was a big mistake. Because I was pursuing money, because I then had the hardship in college, I want you guys to think about how this snowballs from my childhood, from seeing other people, by envious and wanting their stuff. Then I had to go work. I kind of, I didn't do really great in high school because of that, because I was trying to go work, because I was working basically 5, 6 days a week, as much I was legally able to. And then I actually went into college, and then I immediately started taking out debts there because I need to have a nice place and also a nice apartment I want to spend or whatever, how all this adds up. But I ended up working all the way through college. So grades are like okay or whatever. But at a certain point, like definitely struggling, right? Definitely to the point where I was like, hey, like I can't really continue to keep doing this. By that time, I've already taken a couple of credit cards because I got a free shirt at the game. And I've got a little debt. I've gotten some student loan debt. I'm paying for the apartment. By that, I'm dating with somebody. They're living with me. Is really not great. It's really just not a great scenario. And so what I hear is that, oh, by the way, if you graduated today in 2004, they're offering right now your position $44,000. And I thought to myself, like, holy cow, like $44,000 is like an amazing, is it like, it's just like an amazing amount of money. Like up until that point, I had worked at, Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, and the movie theater. I'd become sort of a manager at a restaurant, but I still was doing like $24,000, like, because I was, again, going to school and kind of working at the same time. And so for me, I was thinking, like, if I took my income and let's just say for easy numbers, I doubled it, well, that's the only amount of money that I think I'll ever need to make. Like 44,000 is more than my parents, I think, made based on from what I've known. Like my parents weren't both making 44,000, making 80, $100,000 a year. No, no. At least I didn't see that money. Not that I was aware of. 44,000, all the money I need. So I left school early with only a bachelor's degree instead of going to my master's, even though I had prospects to go to an Ivy League school for architecture, which is what my degree is actually in. I decided like I don't want to do that, whatever. I only need 44,000. It's all the money I need to make. I was in that position for not even a year. And I can already remember going and listening and saying, hey, this money isn't working because my $640 payment went from $640 to $940 because I could just, because I moved from, Gainesville, Florida, where University of Florida was. I moved down to like the Miami area and apartments there were $1,000. But because, I was making 44,000 and I needed to reward myself. So I went and I got a pretty nice apartment because I want to date and I want to, find a mate. I need to have a nice place to like, kind of bring her back to or whatever. Oh, in addition to that, like kind of been driving, a crappy car. And actually in college, I had this little scooter I drove around because you could park it wherever you want to. I used to take my scooter and drive it into the building, go into the elevator, go up and park it right outside because if you left your scooter outside, people will steal it. I actually had my scooter stole 3 times in front of my apartment. One time they take and they completely painted the whole thing. Luckily, a neighbor turned them in and I got it back, or else would have never gotten it back. That poor thing. Anyway, I was going in basically just, again, 44,000, thought that's all I needed to make. Went got a nice apartment and I was like, what? I need a nice car. So I went out and I bought a pretty nice car at the time because again, I deserve it. At that point in time, I believe I purchased a big old Dodge Ram because I was in the construction field. I took a job doing project management for a home builder, and I was like, I need a big truck. So I went and spent $20,000 on a Dodge Ram, not old, like a new Dodge Ram, which was a decent, nice, pretty awesome vehicle. And to the point when I showed up at the job site, there was guys that in their 40s and 50s, and they're like, "Holy crap! Look at this young kid with this new truck. They must be paying really good to these new guys that were coming out." So I worked there for a long period of time. Within a year, I was like, I can't make this work. I ended up selling that Dodge Ram that I wanted to, and I bought believe it or not, this is so stupid. In construction, I bought a Hyundai Elantra because I got great gas mileage and I was going to have to drive really far for my next job. I literally showed up to a job site, a construction job site where everyone else had trucks and stuff because they're doing construction things, and a Hyundai Elantra. So stupid. I sold it, took the bought a brand new one by because I needed a brand new one because I wanted 0 miles because I put how much miles on it. I needed to be reliable. Drove about an hour and a half every single day because the next job that they offered me was for $65,000. And I just knew that if I just made $65,000, hell, that was 3 times the amount of money I made in college. And that was going to be like another 2 grand in my pocket because I was going to go from 44 to 65,000. That's amazing. And I was like, that's literally all the money that I'm ever gonna make. And so driving around for a while, something happened. You know what happened? The housing crisis happened, and everyone got laid off, and I lost my job. And my $65,000 job went disappeared. Honest to this day, I had a friend that I met in college, still was friends with him at that particular time, and he said, "Hey." And then got laid off. That sucked. Like family friend, he hung out with them all the time. Do this. I work in sales and we're doing really good. Actually, we're making like 6 figures. We're making anywhere between $8,000 to $10,000 a month. You could probably do it as well. It's very easy. It's in the financial industry. Just do this, but they want you to have sales experience. So instead of saying that you did construction, tell the person that's going to interview you that you worked like in the sales center because the company was gone anyway because like everything folded up. Tell me you worked in the sales center and like you helped upsell and help people like do whatever. Like you like like top the sales experience. Went in there, sat an interview with the guy. He's like, "Hey, what'd you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I worked for the home builder and worked in the sales department. We were doing upgrades and stuff. And it was killing it. Man, we were just making tons of money. It was really fantastic." The guy didn't care. He probably knew I was lying, never checked any of my references, never called anybody. Based on the referral of my friend, he's like, great, you're hired. You can start tomorrow. I go in, 100, just as my friend said, 8 to 10,000. I'm making more money than I ever have, clearing just around, $100,000 a year, $120,000 a year. Ladies and gentlemen, all the money I would ever need to make, no question whatsoever. At that point in time, I'm really living that sort of Fort Lauderdale, Miami lifestyle, which is still touted today if you look at social media, and just Miami's different. It just costs more expensive. So you need to make more or whatever, make $120,000 a year. And of course, all my friends who are making money, they're all driving nice cars. I can't be driving around a Elantra. Yeah, right. Like everyone's gonna laugh at me. How am I gonna ever meet a girl if I don't have a really nice car? It's just simply not gonna happen. And oh, I need a nicer place to stay in. So of course I upgraded my apartment, something a little bit closer to work, and I bought myself the Lexus IS 350, most beautiful car I always wanted forever. I had to kind of basically stalked it forever. Bought that particular car. I think that car was like $40,000 or something like that. Then something happened, and we all lost our jobs. And I was like, uh-oh, this isn't good. Luckily, I had a little bit of money saved, but found myself to work. Funny enough, even though we lost our jobs, 2 days later, we were all hired back. But that rude awakening for me was like, holy crap, like I've been making all this money. I don't really have a whole lot of savings. I got a car payment. Like I should really be doing something different. Ah, but I didn't. The company actually fired everyone and they waited 3 days and hired everyone back. I now suspect that the reason why they did that is because when you file a company, if you fire everyone, you file bankruptcy or whatever they ended up having to do, and then you hired everyone back, it probably reset the business finances. Long story short, and they brought us all back. They only brought it back a few of us, the ones that were being top production, different video later. So we started back, instead of we were at maybe 20 or 30 people that were there, we're now a 6-person company. And we started off kind of very doing the same thing. I am working at this company from the ground floor, high producer, very productive, very consistent. Again, another video. Long story short, I end up doing so well, I end up being almost active president. The president's clearing money at this point in time. Company comes back with a roar, 5 to 6 years later. He's like, I'm going to go golfing. You run the company. I'm overseeing all these different departments, whatever. I'm making a buck 50 a year and getting checks of like 10,000, 15,000, $20,000 a month. On top of that is bonuses based on earnings and commissions for the particular company. All the money I could possibly need at the time. During that time, I was still able to bought a house because you got to have a nice house. I can't live in potentially an apartment. Who's going to ever want to get married? What kind of person lives in an apartment? Only losers rent to live in an apartment. I need to buy a home. I bought a home during that particular process. I traded up my cars a few more times. All the money I would need to make. Long story short, I eventually met somebody, my current wife, and I met that particular person at the point in time when I met her. Nice car, nice house, lots of built-in equity. At the same time, I still had, even after all of the money, all my credit card, all of the student loan debt, and about $40,000 in credit card debt. Because hey, life's expensive. And even though I was making over 250, life's expensive. And for those of you who are already watching this and saying, well, obviously, because you're just making a bunch of money and buying a bunch of dumb, stupid crap, for that, I'll say, yeah, uh-huh. And I'll say to you that you're probably not being successful because you're buying stupid crap. Life creep is just that. It creeps up to you over time. If I had if I had the same mindset to where I was making, $150,000 in salary, $20,000 of bonuses, and I still lived in that Gainesville, the University of Florida Gainesville apartment, that still would have been larger than I needed at the particular time. And I didn't mind how the outside of the building looked because it wasn't as nice as my brand new nice house that I had at that particular time, or my other apartments that were in a nicer area and closer to Starbucks or whatever. If I'd still drove, while probably valid of getting the Dodge Ram because I went into construction, if I'd still drove in that Dodge Ram and put some extra miles on it, and I didn't get the Hyundai Elantra, and then I didn't get the Lexus IS 350 after that, and then I didn't go, well, I want an SUV, so I went to Infinity after that, and then if I didn't go like, well, I wanted the Mercedes after that, and if I didn't go, well, then I didn't kind of do all of that stuff. And then I didn't say like, well, now that I deserve it, I'm going to get appetizers and I'm going to drink $40 glasses of bourbon and I'm going to wear nicer clothes and I'm going to go to the concerts and I'm going to take vacations. I didn't do all of those things. And instead I lived the same lifestyle struggling that I did probably when I was in college, even though I was making $40,000 a year and I was just kind of barely making that work and I was slowly taking up debt. Remember that debt I talked about that I eventually had to leave school because I realized it wasn't sustainable because there was no ability for me to make more income because I was going to school and working in a restaurant, but the money wasn't working. So student loans were working, but the student loans were going to tap out because just the way that they worked at the time, long story short, like I couldn't get any more student loans. And so I couldn't increase my income because I couldn't possibly work any more than I was. I was like maxed out in both. So I was like, I just got to go get a different job. And I took that. I didn't do, and I was still living in that lifestyle. Let's call it $30,000 a year, $35,000 a year lifestyle. If I just kept that, or if I just kept that lifestyle when I was making $44,000 when I was in construction, but I was making 240 a year, what that money could have done between the ages of 2004 to now, lights out, folks. But what happened is every single time, this is very important, guys, every single time that I worked hard, I thought, I got to reward myself. And the people that I was around all were like, I got to reward myself. And I surrounded myself with people that generally always made more money than me. And so when you're the person, the poorest person, like when I was a kid, when you're the poorest person and you see rich people all around you, you want to go up to them. Remember I talked about like you're a product of your circle of influence, right? And so if you're skinny, but you hang around people who are all heavy set and they don't do anything but Netflix and chill, like you're going to gain weight. If you hang around all fit people and you got a few extra pounds, you're going to get skinnier. Well, if you don't have a whole lot of money and you hang around with a bunch of people that have tons of money, you're going to spend all your money. And we only need to look at the NFL players that come in where the linemen and some of the other guys don't necessarily make as much as the star players. But when the star players go out, the star players party, and the young guys who don't necessarily make as much want to keep up because they want to fit in with the team, camaraderie, all that crap, and they end up broke. And the star players end up making more because they just have enough. And that's how you can get in to be making millions of dollars a year, even if you're just one of those sort of kind of okay, good players and be broke in a couple of years. Those people work side by side with us right now, made millions. Okay. And so the point is like when you're working and you're seeing people and they're doing a little bit better and you're working really hard, there's an inclination to be like, I deserve it. I'm working hard. I just got a promotion. I deserve the new whatever. I just graduated high school. I just graduated college. I deserve the whatever. I just switched my jobs and now I make $5,000 more. I deserve the whatever. After all, isn't the whole point of working hard so I can make more, so I can go up my lifestyle? And to the answer of that is, of course, yes, but at the right time. But at the right time. See, I was making in living, and you might be thinking, oh, living, you might be thinking to yourself, like, yeah, but like, are you really going to live like you're in college when you're 28? Are you really going to live like when you're in college when you're 32? And the answer to that question is yeah. It's actually the biggest shift and is what's changed my life and opened my eyes because something happened when I was at 32 years old. I met somebody named Claire, my current wife, and she was thankfully 10 years my younger, 9 years my younger, no comments there. And it worked out well because when I met her, she came from even more modest than I was. And because she never had money and because she was just still in that college journey, She didn't have a taste. She never had life creep. I did. And so when I met her, I still remember, and she invited me over to her house for the first time. She's probably going to kill me for saying this. Hopefully, she doesn't see this video. I go to an apartment, one bedroom apartment, with, without exaggeration. I actually have photos of this without exaggeration. No couch, no coffee table, no nothing. She didn't need it. A restaurant closed down near her. And when the restaurant closed down, as they were getting and throwing away the stuff, there was a bench outside. You know, when you go to a restaurant, you sit in the benches. There's two benches and a table inside. That's what she had to sit on in her living room, was a bench. If you wanted to sit down, she had one of those little like sit for two people benches in the middle of the living room. She had a trash can across the way, but it wasn't a trash can. She had taken a cardboard box from like whatever, and she goes to the grocery store and she shops. She gets the plastic bags you bring your stuff over. That was her trash bag. So in her living room was an old bench from a restaurant and a box with the trash bag in it. Not focusing a whole lot because honestly, I'm just happy to be invited over, right? For any guy who knows what that means, like she's invited me over. This is a good step in the right direction. We go into her bedroom. She's got a mattress on the floor. She's got a little nightstand that I swear to God, I don't know where she got it from, but it probably came from the side of the road. That's it. She goes to make me dinner. We eat off little plastic bowls. She literally has like two pairs of chopsticks. She's got a pot, couple of glasses, couple of bowls. That's it. She didn't have $1,000 cookware set that I did. She didn't have matching this in a nice set of dishes, in a casual set of dishes, and wine glasses and whiskey glasses and shot glasses and place settings and Pottery Barn table and a beautiful set that for the living room, whatever, and a beautiful nightstand and beautiful pictures, and she didn't have any of that. And I thought to myself, holy crap, I'm saving this woman. No, folks. We started dating and things got serious. And she said to me, she's like, hey, this could work. However, we can't live the way that you're living. And she'd made indications to this when we were dating. She's like, we don't have to go out all the time. And I thought she was just being cute, right? Because I dated people in Miami, and Miami people are like, we got to go out, we got to go to the nice restaurants, and social media is there. I got to work on my Instagram, image, 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 earn and consume, earn and consume. She's like, we can't do this because she know my financial situation. She know the money that would in. She understood I had debt because when you date a Chinese woman, they interview you and they want to know all the stuff, or they're not going to continue to pursue. And she's like, we're not going to do this. Like this could go somewhere, because I'd asked her at that point in time to move in. She's like, but we can't. We're not going to do this. She's like, we have to be more frugal. We're not going to live with debt. We're not going to live beyond our means. We're not going to live at our means. Long story short, she ended up pushing me, or we had decided into selling that house that I worked so hard to, that I was so prideful in owning. We didn't move into her apartment, but we sold the house and we made just enough money off of after realtor fees that we were able to pay off all my credit card debt and the student loans. I started at zero. Just around that time, or at the exact same time, call it coincidence, the company I was working for I ended up leaving that particular position. And we packed up all of our bags and I said, okay, let's move somewhere outside of Florida. And so we moved to a big city by ourselves with no jobs, no prospects, but we had a little bit of savings because I was able to pay off all my credit card debt and she had a little bit of money as well. And we started from there. What I soon realized is that Claire, even living frugal, mattress on the floor, little cardboard box, her parents were extremely wealthy by all means. But she came from a different culture, which we'll get to in a different video. She lived completely different. And because they lived completely different, they lived completely different. Long story short, I ended up getting a job, working, making a decent amount of income back into six figures. We took that money, and at the same time, when we moved to that new city, I started my own company, made some money there. We took that money plus my salary at that particular job. We opened up a restaurant. That restaurant that we opened up ended up, pretty well successful. My wife Claire had to find that particular location, a stay-at-home mom at that particular time. She decided she liked real estate, got into real estate, and now we are here today, amassed over, well into the multi millions of dollars, north of $10 million in net worth, real estate portfolio, businesses, all of that. The only contributing factor to that was because we changed our lifestyle. And when we started making money, because we weren't spending it, we had the ability to open a restaurant, to buy real estate. And when we met people in the mentor that I've talked about multiple times during this course, when they said, hey, what are you doing? You should be investing your money with taxes in mind, something we've covered here. We had the money and the funds set aside to do those things. And that snowballed. So the point is that you can be, and this is extremely hard, because if you go back to the pain abundance curve, which we talked about, most people, when I say to you, when I asked you in the pain abundance curve, what do you define as happiness? And we talked about being yourself, all these types of things. Most people, without me giving you that type of information, would say, I see myself in a nice house. I see myself in a nice car. I'm able to take care of my kids, a lot of materialistic things. And so that's their definition of happy, and that's what they pursue. The problem is that it's never, ever enough. The reason why wealthy people say the things aren't going to make you happy isn't because things don't make you happy. It's because there's always other things. And so you have to find fulfillment in things that aren't things. You have to find fulfillment in people and in works and things like that. That's what's going to shift you. You see, when I met my wife and had lots of things, I made lots of money, was living a really good life. But the most important thing was her. And the realization that it wasn't the money. It was the money that was actually going to keep me from the thing that was most important. Because she had learned a law that I didn't learn, and that you got to live below your means. Find refuge and find happiness in serving others and spending time with people. And it came through for her because even though her family had millions of dollars, she was still living frugal because she said, we need to save this money to help the children. We need our children, our future family. I don't need those things because that doesn't make me. It was just a completely different mind shift. And so for me, it was shocking. And on my pain abundance curve, I would have had nice car, nice whatever. But that all shifted when I met her. And I thought to myself, you know what it is? It's actually time with her. Not having to go to work 60 hours a week, but to come home and be with my children. It is traveling and getting those experiences. Because when I bought the Lexus IS 350, it was nice and I feel really good about it. I also felt good about the Mercedes. I also felt really good about the house and the appetizer. And when I was there and drinking a $60 glass of bourbon. And when I bought this watch. But as soon as you get those things, you're always looking to the next thing. And I know that because when we've gone over other things in the lesson, like the Gucci example, you've all went and purchased a new pair of shoes, a new jacket, a new purse, a new car. And 3 to 6 months later, a year later, it's sitting back in a corner in your closet and it doesn't matter. because it wasn't the things. But if you had the money instead of have giving that things, and that money allowed you to, instead of waking up at a 6 a.m. clock alarm in the morning to drag yourself to the job that you also hate, to work for the boss that you absolutely hate, that you're so terrified to say anything to, or too terrified to commit to because you're so worried you're going to lose your job. And what does that mean? And maybe you'll be out. So you don't say anything. So you don't advance. Again, think the pain abundance curve. If you had all of that money, which allowed you to contribute, which allowed you to make more, if you had that money, and then that means you could travel 10 countries a year, that is what would bring happiness. I'm most happy now, not because of the Ferrari, not because of the Rolexes, not because of my 8,000 square foot house, the 40 other houses that we own across the country, not the cash flow that we have, not the fancy dinners that we have. Not only that, it's fun. It's fun. The fun part, though, is being able to say today, hey, let's go this weekend skiing. Let's take our son skiing. Let's take him out of school. It's his birthday. We're going to take skiing and we're going to hire some private lessons and we're going to go there. So money does make you happy, allows you to do it. But I also have the freedom to do it. I have the money to do it because I didn't waste it on Gucci. We bought experiences. If you, remember I told you about the FIRE number early on. If you arrange a FIRE number when you are poor, if I arranged my FIRE number, and this is why I want you to do it in the beginning of the class, when you're poor, when I was making $40,000 a year, I would have said, I just want a 10-year-old Dodge Ram and a decent job, able to go out once a week or whatever. If I wrote a FIRE number when I was making $150,000 a year, I would have said Lamborghini SVJ, $2 million house on the beach, private jet, like it would have been completely different. Either one of those, none of one of those would have been about happiness or finding the life of fulfillment. Would have been pursuing what I was passionate about. If you work and work extremely hard, which you're going to have to do, and at the end of that, you say, I deserve it, and then you go spend that, I can assure you, you're just going to have to work harder. And where people reach their breaking point, where people get divorced, where people fight about money, where people cheat, where people do all the bad things, is at the end of that line when they just can't do it anymore. They just can't work another day. But they have to, because the credit card debts are high, because the car payment's there, because the house payment's there. So many times do I see on social media people say, how is a young person supposed to live in this economy when a mortgage is $5,000 and a car payment's $1,000 and to buy food is $1,000 and it's, $10 million to buy clothes, whatever the number is. And I think to myself, where do these people live? It's not where they live. It's where their state of their mind lives. Because our state of the mind on social media, where you see all the rich kids out there, like when I was poor and I saw all the rich kids out there, your mind initially goes to, no, my crappy house that my parents spent their entire life building isn't good enough for me because I see what's possible. And so for me, I can't live in this society means that I need to have 10x what my lifestyle is. When the reality and the hardest thing for most people that will do in this particular course is to avoid the life creep and say, no, I need to go backwards. I was lucky enough to go backwards because of the time in my life that I was in and meeting a woman that was 9 years younger than me and being, this is one of the most incredible people that I've met. The wife and I met, we dated for literally 4 weeks and got married. We don't fight. We have one of the best relationships. When I hear stuff online, I don't even understand how people fight or whatever, because we're in a different frequency. But when I met her, I was able to go and transition and move backward. That moved backward back to baseline. That moved backward from, instead of making $250,000, $300,000 a year, back to saying, no, you're going to live off like 44,000. And having a spouse and a partner, which we're going to get to in a couple of videos, having a spouse that was like, no, I don't want the Miami lifestyle. I don't want all that stuff. We can have all of that stuff when our bank account says we can have it. And our bank account's not saying we can have it right now because this ain't it. And she knew that because she had a little bit better education than I did. Having a partner that was willing to go back, forget about it. If you are of older age right now and you were 35 and you're like, I can't make it, how am I going to work? Different videos for you, lessons later. But it might be you got to sell your house. You got to sell all of your cars. You need to get rid of everything. Go back 10 years and then replay. And you might think to yourself, how am I supposed to do that? That's crazy. What will people think of me? Yep, thought that too. What will my parents think of me? What will my family think of me? I'm marrying this poor little Chinese girl from overseas, and I've sold my house, and I've sold this, and I've done all of that. We moved in a small little crappy ass apartment until we reestablished. You know what they say now? He's just lucky. How'd he do it? I don't understand. You might need to go back in order to go forward. If you don't and you want to move forward, that's okay, but you know what your experience is going to be. If, and this is primarily for my young people, life creep, because it is so extremely difficult that once you're there to go back for my young people. One of the major differences, one, you got to get off social media and you've got to get rid of everything that is about trying to make you better than the person you are right now. Meaning, oh, my spouse has to be, if you're a woman, my man has to be 6'2", $300,000 a year, 6% body fat. They don't exist for the most part. 0.001%. If you're a man, you got to stop looking at, the women out there and be like, oh, my woman has to have this. Doesn't exist. All of that you're seeing every single day and that you're consuming is changing the way you are. And you have life creep in your relationships, life creep in your expectations, life creep, and it's going to destroy you. If you are looking and your feed is filled with SVJs and fancy cars and people that take beautiful vacations and all of that, you are going to drive yourself crazy. One, because it might be very hard for you to get to that point, but you'll never get to that point because you're going to try to nibble around the edges to replicate that. So I may get in a plane and go to Thailand for 2 months, and you might see a couple of my feeds and go, oh, look at all the things he's doing. And you may try to replicate that, but you're going into debt, 5, 10,000. You're robbing your future self. I'm not. I'm living off work that's already been done. Oftentimes when you're on social media, you're looking at the end result of a lifetime of work, and you're just at the beginning. You're just at the starting line. You cannot judge the end result of some people when you're at the beginning of yours. So you got to get rid of all of that. You got to turn that all off. And instead, you need to change your circle of influence and your social media and all of that with the ideas of frugalness, saving, investing, your whole feed. Frugalness, saving, investing, getting healthier, getting fit, making good decisions, higher education, learn a skill, spiritual, all of it. That's what your feed should be. If you let that feed into you, you will be centered. You will cut out all of the things that make you life creep, both in relationships and both in finances, and you will wake up finding yourself 10 years from now extremely successful. If you surround yourself with rich friends that are always spending on all their credit cards, the pressure is too hard. You will go and spend. I needed to surround myself with my wife who lived extremely frugal. And we were that was it. We were a team, and that's how we went. If I hung out with the same thing, did the same thing, I would be down the same path, and I would be seeing right now at 43, like the rest of the state of America, with zero retirement funds, just making it by. And instead, it's completely different. If you are young, you have to change your circle of influence. You have to change the things that you're seeing, watching, reading, consuming. You have to change the people that you're hanging around, and you need to get into a community of people that's like-minded people that say, I refuse to be the 99%. Driving a Ferrari but not being able to pay for the Ferrari doesn't make sense. Going out to a bunch of dinners and stuff doesn't make necessarily sense. Those things will come with time, and I can assure you, if you live uncomfortable now and avoid the life creep, and you live in your 30s like you did when you're 20s, your 40s and 50s and 60s is going to be uncontrollably crazy, crazy successful. And all your friends that were all trying to keep up and all trying to keep up their life, they're going to look at you and say, it must be nice to be so lucky. So that I'll say to you, be lucky in that you're not going to follow that. Do not let life creep happen. Do not change up all your cars all over. Do not continue to keep buying. Buy a couple outfits, rock those for 10 years. Buy one pair of shoes, rock that for 5 years. Buy one car, rock that for whatever. And take all of the things that you were spending on and put into assets. When those assets can pay for your lifestyle, double down that for another 5 years. And when your assets are paying for your particular lifestyle times 3, go play. I can promise you it's worth it.